Welcome to the Steady On Stronger Together podcast. I am your host, Angie Bauman. Today, my guest is Lisa Littlewood, who joins me for some straight talk on motherhood. We address the idea that so many of us approach our mothering journey with great joy and anticipation, and soon realize that not only is the work exhausting, it also stirs up feelings of inadequacy and overwhelm. I so appreciate Lisa's willingness to talk about her journey of recognizing her weaknesses in order to become a strong mom for her 3 girls. I know you will be touched by her story. Let's listen in. Good afternoon, Steady On friends. Welcome to this week's Stronger Together conversation. I'm Angie Bauman, and this is my guest today, Lisa Littlewood. And Lisa, we're so delighted to have you today. I'm going to do a couple of clicks so that I can watch for comments and things as we get started. Lisa comes to us from Buffalo, New York, right?
Yes.
I have that right. Yep. And she is wife to Scott and mom to 3, all girls.
Yes.
Right. I'm a boy mom, and Lisa's a girl mom. Yep. And we're going to talk today about motherhood, actually. And one of the things that I want to be real quick to say, because I have a very sensitive heart to people who want to be mothers and for whatever reason are not and cannot. And so I just want to encourage anyone who happens to be watching this live or picking up on the replay, if this is a painful journey for you in terms of being a mother, we see you, and we just recognize that struggle and that pain, because that is actually very, very real also. So I like to cover that with, we don't assume that all women are mothers here in this community, but we are going to talk about motherhood. And I know, Lisa, you do a lot with your church, right? Talk to us just a little bit about what you do with the moms group and all that kind of good stuff there. So we can get to know you just a little bit.
Absolutely. So the church I'm with now, we've been with for about 2.5 years. It's called The Well in the Buffalo area.
It's a beautiful name for a church. I love that.
Absolutely.
It is. It is. Yeah.
And we often feel like the moms meeting at the well.
Hopefully there's not one that you're shunning at the same time.
No. Bringing our needs and our...
That's right. No, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been there about 2.5 years. We were at a really big church before that and transitioned to the smaller church, and they didn't have a mom's group. And it's always, my mom's groups were such an important part of my experience, especially in the little years. Mm-hmm. My girls are now 13, 11, and 7. So we're out of that kind of baby toddler stage, but those early years were so shocking to me. And these middle years, all the years, but you kind of get to the shock.
Yes.
So I thought, we didn't have a lot of resources, but I thought, you know what, let's just gather and read books together, almost like a book club. So we've done a couple books on motherhood. We did the Bible study Seamless at one point.
Oh, Angie Smith.
Smith. Yeah.
I have not done that one, but I have heard wonderful things about that Bible study.
Beautifully done. It was very good. So there's usually, there's 10 to 12 of us, and it just is a sweet time of getting together and sharing our hearts. And we have so often felt like, especially in these days, we're living very countercultural. Yeah. And so that meeting and getting together and being able to meet with like-minded moms. And talk about our values and how we're trying to implement them literally against the culture with our kids sometimes has just been such a blessing to me, and really good.
And a place where we can share our struggles, our mothering struggles, because I do feel like mothering is a place, there are a lot of places in our culture, but mothering is a place where we're supposed to have it all together and know all the answers. And I think that probably I'm pretty confident that none of us do. And I'm for sure confident that I don't, right? But there is this pressure of, as if we'd all done it before, and we have a lot of practice, because every season that my boys enter, and I would think you say the same, every season that my boys enter, I actually say this to my 16-year-old when I'm trying to make a decision about something around him. I'm just honest and be like, I've never parented a teenager before. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. I just need you to know that I'm doing my best, but I'm going to get it wrong sometimes because I've never been here before. So, so we are delighted to have you here. Lisa's blog is beautiful, and you can find her, and I'll put this in the comments and stuff too, but Little Writer Mama, MOMMA.com, littlewritermama.com, which is fun. So let's just dive in and talk about kind of what motherhood was like for you from the very beginning, because you've been honest in your writing and with me when we've chatted a little bit that that motherhood has been a struggle from you kind of from day one, that there's been anxiety and depression and just some overwhelm that came. And so just talk to us a little bit about what that's been like for you, Lisa.
Yeah. So I'm 13 years into this. So
which some days feels like no time and some days feels like forever, right?
That's right. Some days I feel like I've learned so much and other days like nothing
and
at all.
nothing, right?
So it feels like it's been a struggle from the very beginning. And sometimes I feel sad saying that because, you know, we come into it with so much expectation. And even, you know, I came into having my first daughter with so much joyful expectation. And, you know, in getting the room ready and being ready to be this mom and reading all the books and having an idea of how it's all going to go. And then I think for me anyways, the expectation met the reality very quickly. With Ava, so my oldest, I struggled pretty quickly with some postpartum depression. And in retrospect, I wouldn't have called it that. I had no idea. I thought this was new motherhood. But when I look back, I want to go back and give that new mom a hug because I was very overwhelmed. I felt very alone, on the verge of tears constantly. I actually remember taking Ava it might have been like her 2-month checkup. And, you know, the nurse came in and was all chipper and, you know, she's beautiful and isn't this wonderful and how are you doing? And I had like this frog in the back of my throat because I wanted to break down and cry and say like, can you come home with me? I'm not doing well. But I didn't, you know, I just kind of smiled, you know, everything's good. But at home, it felt very overwhelming and I felt very alone. And then, I mean, slowly you find your feet. I had a good mom's group at the time. I had some good friends at the time. And I think that's where you begin to see the Lord with you, even in places you're not expecting. You know, that phone call to just say, hey, let's go grab coffee today, or let's have a play date today. And in the midst of a lot of uncertainty and difficulty, you know, that time of fellowship would kind of bring you out of that space and refuel you and refill you. And so, yeah, I guess that was the journey from the beginning. And then I had my second daughter about 2 years later, 19 months later. So also struggled with a little bit of postpartum depression with her. But as you know, if you have 2 kids, you're very busy by the time you have 2, so distracted. But the reality is I can now see there were a lot of things, even wounds that I was bringing from my childhood that were underneath the surface, creating anxiety and low level depression and overwhelm that I didn't understand as that then. But in the last few years, God has really been kind to take me on a lot of healing journeys through some of that. And so then we had my third daughter in 2013. So she's a ball of energy. And I know I was joking with you that maybe there was a new normal after 1 and maybe there was a new normal after 2, but the new normal after having the third for us felt like crazy town all the time. So sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way.
I think there's one comment that I want to laugh about in just a second, but before I remember, so my oldest is 16 and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this right. This motherhood thing. Like it's like a clean slate. Yeah. I'm not going to make some mistakes that other people make because I'm sure I knew why they made those decisions, right? As not having ever done it before. And the first thing basically from the get-go after Alex was born, he would not nurse. And I had committed to breastfeeding. Like that was really important to me, but he would not nurse. And we tried everything and he kept losing weight. And I felt like formula was like poisoning him for some reason. And I think like you, just with all those emotions, I had it in my mind what I was going to do. It wasn't working out that way. I was very distraught over it. And money was kind of tight when our first one was born. And I remember finally making the decision, because I think they'd sent me home with like a manual breast pump, which was not a fun tool to, okay. And I was trying to do that. And I was like up, it was crazy because he was up like maybe every 4 hours and I had to pump every 4 hours, but they wouldn't be the same 4 hours. So I would be up every 2 hours, one to feed him, one to pump, one to feed. And it was awful. It was just like awful. Like, I'm like, where is the joy in this? This is terrible, you know? And I remember he was born mid-May and it was Labor Day weekend. So early September that I made this decision to buy like an electrical double breast pump, which at the time, this was 2004, was like close to $400. And we did not, like, that was a lot of money to us then. It's still a lot of money, quite honestly. But, but I remember like praying, like, this has to work, because I was so distraught over how to take care. I'm like, I can't even feed him. What else am I not going to be, you know? So I just like, I totally get that sort of feeling of, I'm already messing it up so bad. That's how I felt anyway, that I, you know, and I'm like you, I wish I could go back and just give myself a hug and say, you are loving him well. We're going to get this fixed, right? We're going to get this figured out. He's going to be okay. So, so my friend Lisa Wood, so Lisa Wood is watching, and I was talking about her. I was talking about you, Lisa, before we went on, because this is Lisa Littlewood, and my Josh, my youngest one that's 10 this morning, we were talking about what I was doing today. And I said, you know, my new friend Lisa Littlewood is coming on, and he said, Lisa Wood is coming on for an interview. And I said, no, it's a different person or whatever. And he's like, there's two Lisa Woods. Like, you. So Lisa, my friend that's watching, you'll appreciate that. But Lisa says, Lisa says, I've been a mom for 24 years and I do everything right. Not. And then she says, expectations, I've learned to lower mine. That's so important. Yeah. And she says, I think more accurately, we need to not feel the need to live up to the world's idea of mothering, and also relating about the breastfeeding, because I believe I remember that was a difficulty for her as well. So, and something like that can be such a trigger early on, I think, for those of us, just feel like I'm already not doing this very well. Yeah.
And Angie, when you just said that about expectations and not living up to them, I was just thinking this morning, thinking about this talk, that the verse that says comparison is the thief of joy. And the aha moment was, though, that so often I'm not even comparing myself to other moms. I'm comparing myself to the mom I thought I was supposed to be.
What I should be. I'm not as good as what I should be.
That has stolen.
And I really believe that the enemy is very good at moving that should just a little farther all the time, so that we're never able to attain the what I thought that I should be. That way we're always like tempted to not embrace the joy. And I think that, you know, especially as the kids grow and change, what are we doing so that we can embrace the good? Because you have to do it at the same time, you know, the hard with the good. So so you shared with me that a mentor had invited you to participate in this pretty, like, what I would call like an intense study, right? It was like 9 months long. And it really did something in you that brought you more to kind of the root of some of the things that you were facing. Talk to us a little bit about like that invitation, the study, what you learned. Just give us a little background on that. Because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was really a movement for you in all this, right?
So I dug into my email yesterday, and I actually found the email to find the date of when I took the study. So it was in the fall of 2015. Okay. And the study is called Healing Journeys, 9 months long, trying to see how many, 29 weeks. You know,
wow. So okay. So in 2015, where were you in your mothering? How many kids did you have at that point?
So I had 3.
You had all 3. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
8, 6, and 2.
Okay. Okay.
You know, so full in the trenches.
Yep. Oh yeah.
My emotions are already like this.
There's no vacation days for 8, 6, and 3. That's right.
So older woman from my church, she had been a mentor for a while. She was teaching. She had taught this class many times, and it's really about inner healing. And she said, Lisa, I really think you need to take this class. And so I, you know, semi-committed. And then just as the class was about to start, stepped out, sent her an email. I found the email this morning. I'm going to read you the first paragraph. This is how bold she was. So I said, I can't do this right now. Life is too busy. Scott's, work schedule. I've got the kids. Life's too crazy. I don't have time for this.
Which I would bet that email was tough to send when you'd already committed. So I would think, right? That would be tough for me when I'm like, I said yes, but now I need to say no. So
Yeah.
So and then you think, "Ooh, I'm done with that. Thank goodness." Right. Yeah. And
she says, I understand your choices at this time. I am not sure I can agree with them because your not healing is affecting the other areas of your life. Ever since I've known you, you have needed to have inner healing. It's connected to everything, your children, your family, your husband, and your life choices, and your struggles with writing and finding time to write. I love you dearly, and I will pray as I have continued to pray. Your healing needs to come up higher on your priority list.
Those are bold words.
She is a bold woman.
Those are bold words. I would argue that there's not very many people that I would hear that from in my life. And there are a few, but not very many, right?
No.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for it because, when somebody says something like that to you, I mean, your first instinct is to be defensive, but
absolutely.
Then I did just humble myself. And I thought, I know she is strongly rooted in the Lord. I know she has always spoken wisdom to me before. I know that God sends people into our lives to speak hard words to us sometimes. And so in that humble place, I just prayed and I said, Lord, I don't feel like I have time for this right now, but what do you think? And I kind of wrote it off. I thought, I don't need inner healing. Like that's for people who have X, Y, and Z.
Like serious trauma, right? Yeah.
Right. I don't have that X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So I don't need inner healing.
Yeah.
And
I've played that song too.
Yep. I remember him so clearly saying, Lisa, put aside what you think this class is about.
Yeah.
And just enter it as a time to get to know me better. Go into it, seeing what you can learn about scripture, what you can learn about the word. And so I went back and said yes. And it really was a shift in the beginning of my healing, my inner healing, and recognizing how I needed that. The class in the 29 weeks touched on so many things on, they call it pride pathway. Are you going your way or God's way? So there was a lot of just talk about which way are you going? Just stories about how God sees you. It was rooted in Joseph's story and how he was rejected by so many and could have thought God had left him for naught, but how God worked all that out in his life. And then, to taking captive your thinking and to not being a victim and to surrender all of these things, but just it was with, I want to say 20 other women. And so we were in small groups. And so each week we had homework to do and we had to hash out the questions from that week and be vulnerable and honest about our story. And I remember during the class at one point, God gave me this image where he was building a new foundation. And so he relayed it to my childhood home we grew up in. It was a one-story house, but it was on a slab, so it had no basement. Okay. And I remember one day in my mind, he literally picked up the house and I watched it. He dug this foundation underneath and then set the house back down. And he basically was just saying, Lisa, I'm giving you the foundation of my word and my love and my values and your identity, and that your foundation of your identity needs to be in me. So it was like he was digging this new foundation in my life from which to walk forth in my motherhood. And so it was deep.
That's beautiful, but that's also that's tough work. I think I think of the years I have done some of that self-reflective work over the past few years, but there were a lot of years that I ran from it, not really even knowing that I was running from it. I was just I wanted to feel different. So I just kept trying different things to feel different, and God really called me to a time of self-reflection that kind of did very much what that class was doing for you, I think. And you shared with me about this metaphor that you use about clearing the property that, correct me if I'm wrong, it kind of came from that class or just is something that someone shared with you? No.
Yeah, it was that was actually a counselor prior to the class.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I think it's such a picture of what you're talking about with like the healing that comes from this self-reflection and getting your identity in Christ and those kind of things. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot like you, I think for a long time, even prior to this class, I wanted to feel better too. And counselors are very an important part of that journey so often. And we had just moved back to Buffalo, and I was looking for a counselor. My very favorite counselor was back in Massachusetts where we had been, but found this counselor, and we only met a couple times actually. I don't know if our schedules didn't work out, but she said something so profound. We were just talking about how hard life was feeling, how hard motherhood was feeling, how hard it just was feeling to feel better. And she said, well, so without getting too long-winded here, my parents both came from kind of broken homes, just a lot of sadness, a lot of brokenness. They were both in really rough places, I think, emotionally, spiritually, when they met. And then got pregnant with me, which was the reason they got married. So, kind of started on this road together, the three of us, right? So them and their brokenness, and now me, and then my siblings. And so she just said, because they never had a foundation, they haven't necessarily had a foundation to give to you. And so she painted this picture that it's almost like you have this plot of land, and it's this legacy. It's been handed down to you, and God wants it to be beautiful, but the land needs to be cleared. It's overgrown. There's high grass, and there's bushes, and there's trees, and everything's very overgrown. And as this new generation of faith comes into play, my parents and then me, that it's a lot of work to cut that grass down and to trim those branches and to get rid of those bushes. And I think at the end of the day, my hope is that we're clearing out a lot of the muck so that our kids can, live in the land, promised land almost, right? To live in the land freely and more abundantly.
And with the desire to continue to care for the land and cultivate it so that it stays good, right? I mean, because
growth. You think about growing gardens and new kind of growing.
Yes. What are you planting to make this place even better for the people who follow you? But
absolutely,
I think that's a beautiful metaphor of just the work that sometimes needs to be done. A house needs to be repaired. And I live in a university community, and we have on our university campus, we have a beautiful lake that I walk sometimes. And unfortunately, around the lake is some housing that needs to be torn down. Actually, it's just, but the expense of that it's not the right timing for the university to do that. But over the years, when I went to school there, people lived there, and it was kind of like a vital place. Probably too much partying, which is why they might need to be torn down. But anyway, but that's beside the point, right? But now they're boarded up, and they're not like ridiculously unattractive, but they're not useful. No one can live there. And I stood there one time. I was just having a difficult period, and I felt like those houses, like those dorms that were boarded up. And I just felt this invitation from God to, almost like what you're saying, to allow him to, but there's nothing here I can't fix, Angie. Like that's I felt like that was just the message of, this needs some work. There's no doubt, like the inside isn't as good as what it needs to be for healthy living, for healthy surviving, for thriving, if you will, but this is not bigger than me. I have enough resources and enough time that this, and I think about that with your metaphor of your property as well, that we don't get it changed in a day. We don't get it cultivated and cleared in a day, but daily taking those things to him over time, we can see an enormous change. Absolutely. Yeah. So one of your daughters actually is like dealing with some anxiety now, you shared with me. And so I just wondered, because you have dealt with anxiety and depression, and oh, by the way, counseling. Yes. I have people, all the yeses to counseling. Somebody was asking me the other day, I guess I said something that would like made them think. And they were like, how did you get so wise? I'm like, oh, lots of therapy, lots and lots of therapy. So I just wanted to affirm that, because I absolutely believe. And, for those that may be watching, listening, struggling, it is right and good to seek out the counsel and advice of someone. Sometimes, and maybe Lisa, you can speak to this too. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of working before you find the right fit.
Yes. I have seen and not seen lots of counselors.
Yes. Yes.
I actually was thinking when I haven't read Pilgrim's Progress, but I know the concept of the story. He's meeting all these people, and I thought I could write a book like like my counseling stories, like Pilgrim's Progress.
I love that, actually. Yes.
You meet this person, and they give you this little bit of advice, and this person, this person, this person.
Yes.
Yes. You can't stop after the first counselor. I mean, sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's okay. Right. It's not a good personality fit. It just isn't.
Right.
I've seen multiple people just once or twice.
Yeah. And you just know, you got to keep, and it can be discouraging but keep at it. I would just encourage, anybody because that can be a very, very valuable thing. For me, the thing it's done, because it's someone trained like in the brain can help so much me understand what Jesus is calling me to do. I don't know how to say it, like it's Jesus that does the healing. Like I totally believe that, but someone who can help me process has been so instrumental. And plus the accountability of like I don't know, want to call it homework or something, but the accountability of knowing I'm going back in a month to talk to this person, and I'm supposed to have been thinking, pondering, studying, praying about this, accountability is really good for me too. So all that to say, I'm a strong believer in that as well. So, so let's talk about just, not necessarily your daughter so much. I just thank you for sharing that. I want to, just respect her privacy so much, but what is that like to you, for you, to kind of watch her struggle with this, with your own struggles, and how are you mothering her through that? What's that like for you?
It's heartbreaking. I know I was saying to you, in our desire to want to do everything right, like we're these Christian moms and we're going to get it right and we're going to read the books and and somehow
and we're going to keep them from struggling like we
That's
have.
Exactly it. Somehow I had the misconception.
If I just do this right enough, they won't hurt or struggle the way I have.
That's
right? Yes.
And so when it first came up, it was surprising to me because I thought, Lord, I thought I did everything right. And so, I mean, even saying that, I'm realizing it's this conversation between me and God, and it's the conversation between me and her, and him encouraging me to keep encouraging her and reminding me that this is not my fault, and just asking for him to equip me with the words to say, and then trying out of that space to just encourage her. And I mean, she's only 11, and so I'm careful about how much I want to be honest, and I will keep being honest,
Right.
So I tell her that, honey, this is something that I've struggled with for years, in bits and places and different seasons and different ways. And I think just hearing that somebody else was struggling, I think has been freeing for her.
Yeah.
And she now knows she can just come to me like that. No,
that's beautiful.
No thought is too off the wall. No fear is too off the wall. Come and just talk to me, honey. Sometimes just speaking those fears out loud is so freeing.
Yes.
And so I want to be that space for her, and then just encouraging her also that ultimately, to take it to the Lord as well.
Right.
I've actually told her so often when I've prayed to God, I imagine a box in my head, and I have to keep putting the anxiety in the box, and the box is at the Lord's feet, and the fear in the box, and the struggle in the box, and the anxious thoughts in the box, and the overwhelm in the box. And then when I'm done praying, God takes the box.
Yes.
And I can't figure it all out right now. I just have to trust that he has the box with all the mess. And so I've been encouraging her to do the same thing. She was doing a little camp for a devotional that's coming out. It's a launch team, and they actually created a worry box. And so we had already talked about it, but so she really enjoyed creating this worry box. So she's been writing things on notes and
I love that. I think one of the things that's helped me, and I don't deal with anxiety as much, but I deal with a lot of critical self-talk. I've gotten better about this, and like putting myself down and just talking to myself in a way that God would not talk to me. Right. Which creates this like disappointment in myself and failure. So I get it, even though it's like kind of slightly different. But one of the things that's helped me so much is like the toolbox, right? You've got to have a plan.
Yeah.
If you know you're going to fall into this because you've done, I mean, especially if you're working to free yourself from it, or working to be freed through the Lord from it. I think you know what I mean? Then when it happens, what are we going to do? And that's like what you're talking about. Like I actually have something either physical or tangible, or just this mantra that I have, right? That like helps me really, like you say, let go of it. I was just, I teach Bible study on Tuesday mornings. And I was just this morning, we were talking about Lamentations 3:23, how his mercies are new every morning. And I'm like, I don't think that he would mind me just adjusting that a little bit, because sometimes his mercies are new every moment. I mean, depending on where you are, right? I mean, maybe I can't wait till the morning to bring this to you again. Like, you know, here I am again today because I need it again. Yeah. So
I was going to say too, do you Sissy Goff?
I do not.
Bob
yes,
Goff,
I do. Yes, now that you said
Bob Goff, and then his wife Sissy. She
Yes.
runs a counseling practice. I want to say it's down in Nashville, maybe.
Okay.
But she wrote a book called Raising Strong Girls. If you go on Amazon or whatever, look up Sissy Goff in this book. It's Raising Strong Girls.
Okay.
I don't know where it is right now, but it's about helping girls overcome anxiety and fear. And she talks a lot in the beginning about how it's actually an epidemic in our culture.
Interesting.
With girls and self-esteem and the fears and the expectations they're carrying. So reading that has really helped to give me some language to work with Ella. But then she has a workbook that you can use with kids for like 8 to 12. So we also bought the workbook called like Braver, Stronger, Smarter.
Nice.
And she breaks it down, and you know that you call it your worry monster, and so you talk about your worry monster. And so Ella and I have been working through that book together as well, which is just, it's giving us language and ways to talk. And
absolutely. I will, when we're done, I will find it. I'll put it in. I'll just put a link in the comments in the show notes so that you can have it. Julie says yes every moment. I think she's talking about the Lamentations. And I just believe that his grace is big enough. And the thing that I feel like I always have to tell myself is remember what you know. Remember when something gets hard, remember what you know. You know his promises, they're true. They haven't changed just because you're feeling crazy right now. And so remember what you know, and go back to those promises and hold tight on them. He is with you. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, you said that you and your husband are really working to clean out old stuff, because I know we've talked about how your husband has his own story that you guys have come together. And so one of the goals that you have as a couple for your children is really trying to create a new legacy. And what is that? I don't want to get caught up in the shoulds and the expectations, right? But what are your hopes for that? What does that look like to you, creating something new?
Oh, I don't even, sometimes it's hard to see the end picture.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like it feels like we're so in the moment and we're just being faithful to the moment. You know how you literally just keep asking God what the next step is.
Well, and I'm going to stop you right there to suggest that can be the legacy then, right? Like one of the things I've told my kids is I came from a place where you didn't really talk about feelings and what you felt. And so one of the things, and they give me a hard time, moms, all the feels, we always have to talk about the feels. But so I'm like, that's okay. I'm a big girl. I can take it. Because the thing is when my kids are really struggling, what I want to say, I always tell my kids, you can be mad, mean, you can say, pretty much but if you will name the emotion, like you're never going to be in trouble for being angry. Like you can't talk to me like that. Like that may not be right. But what is the emotion that's under there? And that's one of the things for my kids, I want to do that for them and say, what you feel is not bad. What do we need to do with what you feel? And not just stuff it, because that has not served me well in my life, to just try to stuff those feelings. And so I think what you're saying about moment by moment, I think that's a beautiful thing to teach your children, that in this moment you can call on him, right? In this, for this next step, it's not about arriving somewhere. It's about understanding that I don't know. I don't think we really arrive anywhere.
No. And I feel like our calling just feels like to point our children to Christ and cultivate light for the world, help to cultivate their light for the world. but I honestly think we don't know what that looks like sometimes.
I
And so
agree.
I don't know what the end picture looks like, except that I know that when we launch the girls, that their faith will be strong, and that my prayer is that the gifts and the passion that Christ has put in them, that they would just use to be light in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think as we talk about expectations, I mean, we can create all the expectations in the world, but God's really ultimately writing the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like at this point, I don't know, Lord, you write, I will just keep being daily obedient
Mm-hmm.
and trying to point our girls towards you.
Yeah.
Establish your values in our house. And then you're writing the story. I have no idea what that's going to
Right.
be like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I try with my boys to be very quick to say, I love you and I'm sorry, like in different ways, like, right. Because I want them to know that both are true. We have this little thing with my kids that I say, it doesn't change the love. Like, sometimes when things get hard, we've had a hard day, we've had a hard interaction. I'm not very happy with them for one reason or another. They're not very happy with me for one reason or another. You know, when my kids were little, I would say, look in my eyes and what do you see? And their answer would be love, like that, you know. Now I say, you know, they're a little bit bigger, so I don't make them do that. But you know, I'm like, it doesn't change the love. Like this is non-negotiable. Like I may not be happy right now, or this may not be going well right now. But the fact that I love you doesn't change, because that's the one thing that I need to hear from God over and over again. Like maybe you've messed this up, maybe you've wandered, maybe you have whatever, tried to do it in your own resources and not come to me like, you know, you can, but it doesn't change the love. And that's the thing that just grounds me so much. And so just as we kind of, I'm watching the time here a little bit, we're going to wrap up in just a second, but I know you have some words of encouragement for moms who might be struggling, and some of us are struggling because we have new ones. Some of us were in a new season. I was talking to a mom on email that was just like, I'm struggling. My kid, this is the first time my kid heard she's a new empty nester. Like, you know, just what are some words that you would like to just encourage those who are struggling today?
I jotted down a couple of my favorite, the verses that God has brought up over and over and over and over.
I love that.
And two of them talk about seeking him. And so Psalm 27:8 says, my heart says of you, seek his face, your face, Lord, I will seek. And Jeremiah 29:13 says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. And so I feel like over and over again in the chaos, I have felt the Lord just saying, you know, it's like the story of them being out on the water and Peter getting out of the boat. Keep your eyes on me. Lock eyes.
Yeah.
And so just to seek his face and to seek his peace. And I think to be reminded that even when we're feeling lonely, that he is with us. I feel so often that, I mean, we know he's with us, but it's like we know it on our head level, but we're not living it in our heart level. And just the little blessings. I mean, my kids' laughter sometimes, or if I'm having a hard day, the silly things they say, or, you know, that a neighbor stops by with, you know, some cookies, or, I mean, there's been all these little gifts. And I think those are his graces and his blessings and his way of, you know, just helping us along in his grace and in his love. And I am trying to be better about acknowledging those and thanking him with a grateful heart at the end of the day. Like, Lord, where did I see you today? Where did I see you show up today? You know, I mean, so it's kind of like that, the gratefulness journal sort of thing, but not necessarily what am I grateful for, but Lord, where did I see you today? And then like the gratefulness just pours out of that. So
yeah. It is my firm belief that that Thanksgiving and praise is the antidote to worry and anxiety. Like for some reason, it's just like our brain can't do both at the same time. And when I am worried about something, like I know, like if I focus on what to praise you for, it will flee. It's like the enemy will not stay here. That worry and anxiety will not take up space in the same place that Thanksgiving and praise does. And it's crazy how often I forget that, and I'm rolling around the problem in my brain and not not doing it. But I really appreciate your encouragement around that, because I think that's so true. I had just last week, there was an author on, her name's Nicole Deese, and she had written on her challenge to us was, what's not wrong with your life today? And I thought that was just a beautiful way to say what you're saying, where you're like, okay, this is basically what has happened today that I can celebrate in the smallest things, where I can look and see, this is the evidence of you in my life. Mm-hmm.
And I the only thing I want to add to that too is, just as moms, I think we get so bogged down in the logistics that we don't make the time to get away to do that. And one thing that's been huge for me is just prioritizing. If I'm feeling completely, out of sync with my rhythms and out of sync with everything going on, I mean, so often I've just gotten in my minivan and I said, Scott, I just need to go. I need to take my journal. I just need to go. But allowing yourself to do that. Go get a coffee, go get a tea, go sit in a park and breathe and pray and journal. And don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah. And I think to find our own rhythm of self-care is like almost like a buzzword or something. And you're like, oh, take care of yourself. And almost like people will say, this is how you take care of yourself. Right. What feeds your soul? Like to spend enough time to know, this is how I seek renewal, right, in the Lord. Because for some people it is journaling. For me, it's like music is so like, I'll go up into my closet with my playlist, right? And I just need that for 10 minutes. And they're like, mom's in the closet, leave her alone. But that does like so much good for me to just reconnect to him through. And so what is it that is just can be a go-to when you're like, I need that renewal and reminder? Melanie says, yes, empty nester. So she's feeling that when you're talking. And then Julie says, those gifts are great. God sightings are awesome to share with our kids too. I think that's good, Julie, to remember to say, not only am I experiencing this inside, but to say it out loud, to just say, I just want to praise God for this today, so your kids sort of feel that attitude of Thanksgiving. So
that's convicting.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Julie, for that. So, Lisa, this has been a delight. Again, I just thank you so much for your time today and your encouragement. And I really feel like all of us that have been through this mothering or are in this mothering journey can really relate to what you've been sharing today. So I really appreciate just your willingness to talk about some of your struggles and encourage us in ours. It means a lot. So Lisa's blog again is Little Writer Mama, MOMMA.com. And I'll put that in the comments so that you guys can find her. I really encourage you to find and follow her. And you're working on a book. Can I just say that? Because what Lisa,
if you put it out there, it'll make me.
What Lisa has said is when the time is right. And so with no pressure at all, but her working title for her book is Stretch Marks, which is a book for mamas who are struggling. And we really need that. I think what you are doing is that hug for the mom who is struggling. So you might not be able to go back and do that for yourself, but you are certainly do it for others. And we really appreciate you and your ministry. So
thank you for having me.
Yes. It's been wonderful. So, all right, we're going to sign off until next time. Peace, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Lisa's website is Little Writer Mama, and I have linked that for you in today's show notes. Also listed are several books Lisa mentioned today during our conversation. I hope that whether or not motherhood is a part of your life story, you have appreciated Lisa's encouragement today. We all care for and nurture someone. Being the best we can be in that role requires taking a hard look at our plot of land, to use Lisa's words, and doing what is necessary to cultivate it so it has the potential to be a beautiful, peaceful offering. Thank you so much for listening. I pray that wherever your day takes you, you are walking in the confident knowledge that you are a beloved, cherished child of God. Peace.